by Jordan Peterson, y'all too. Y'all know I actually Jordan Peterson. He talks very wise and all that stuff. I think that's why a lot of people likes him. He uses a lot of big words. He's sophisticated, but he gives off that vibe. It's not like I don't feel like he's talking to people with his sophistication to talk down on people like you don't know what this word is. He seems like he's genuinely trying to better the world and do things like that. But he's talking about sacrificing now for your future. I was honestly surprised when I seen this because I was like, oh snap, this is actually something, that I rock with. My friends actually they just started a podcast and they was having a conversation that I feel like really Jordan Peterson just hit perfectly, but I wanted to go ahead and spill. So the question they asked was, doing something you don't enjoy and able to get to where you need to go. I personally believe that you need to sacrifice now for your future. That may mean doing a job that you don't too much care for in order to get to where you need to be at. I feel like that's a sacrifice that I personally would make. Even in my own life, I enjoy my job, y'all. I enjoy my job. It allows me to do a lot of things. But to just think that it's all peaches and cream is beyond, it would be beyond me. If you think it's easy to go on the road for 5 weeks being away from home, but you would see me, oh, he's doing this. He went skydiving. He has to be having a great time. While behind the scenes, I'm sacrificing. I'm not at home for over a month. I'm over here working overtime. I'm putting in that work, doing hard work. Those aren't the things that I enjoy. I don't enjoy working 12-hour days. I don't enjoy being away from home for 5 weeks. Like being away from my family and loved ones, my family and friends. Like it's not enjoyable, but it's something I'm willing to sacrifice so that I can do the things that I enjoy. That job, when I sacrifice and I do it, it allows me to pay for this mic. It allows me to pay for this ring light. It allows me to pay for this MacBook that I'm using to stream from. And it needs to allow me to pay for some internet connection. That's what I need to figure out next. So it's going to allow me to continue chasing my personal dreams. And that's the sacrifice that I think that a lot of people aren't willing to do. You're chasing your dream, yes, but you don't have a lifestyle that even you can even put towards that thing. That's like people who make music, but you don't have enough money to fund making music. Sounds like a lot of people I know. I ain't gonna lie. It's tough. Making music is expensive. So you got this big dream of being a rapper, but you don't got no money to put into it. And that happens with a lot of people's dream. You may have a dream of being a baker, opening up your own shop, but you don't have the money to even start. Don't have the money to even start. So maybe you need to sacrifice and get a job. That way that you can actually afford to chase your dreams. That's how I feel. But we're going to go ahead and get right on into Jordan Peterson and see what he has to say about sacrificing for your future. Let's get it.
People say, well, I have to do what I hate because I have to struggle forward in life. I don't like my job, but I have to do it. And I understand that, because the fundamental condition of mankind is one of essential privation, right? I mean, without food, we starve, and food doesn't just make itself manifest of its own accord. Without shelter, we freeze or we burn. Without water, we die of thirst. And it takes effort to provide that, and it takes communication and cooperation and competition and sacrifice. And sacrifice, that's work. There's no difference, by the way. This is a good key if you ever dip into biblical writings, for example. There's no difference between sacrifice and work. They're the same thing. the idea that God is pleased by sacrifice, is the same idea as if you work hard, things will get better. It's the precursor to that more secular formulation. Are there sacrifices that please God? Well, what does that mean? It means, are there things you could do now that would put the future right? And the answer is, well, if you work, you say yes, because what you're doing when you're working is sacrificing the momentary pleasures of the present for something approximating medium to long-term survival. And it's not like that's going to make you happy necessarily, although it might keep you alive, which arguably is better than being happy. You know, happy for a brief while, then dead is not a very good story. That's the story of someone too radically hedonistic and impulsive. And so human beings, we can apprehend ourselves across time, right? We know that you bear a responsibility for who you are right now, and maybe to be happy as you can be in the moment, let's say, or at least as free from catastrophic anxiety and anger and depression as you might be. But that's not good enough, because you have to take account of yourself tomorrow and next week and next month and next year, right? You become an adult. You live across the decades, certainly the years, perhaps the decades, and you have to govern your behavior in the present in the knowledge of your future, with the heavy knowledge of your future self at hand. And if you have any sense, and you know we do from time to time have some sense, you don't compromise who you're going to be in a month for who you are right now, you know, and maybe you don't compromise who you're going to be when you retire for who you are right now when you're 30. You have to take that expansive view, which includes you iterating across time, right? You have to treat yourself like you're a community in time. Each person is a community in time. And so the biblical injunction, which is treat your neighbor as you would like to be treated, is a reflection of the fundamental fact that there is actually no difference in the truest sense between establishing productive, generous harmony, reciprocal harmony with other people, and treating yourself properly. It's the same rule set. It's the same rule set, and by necessity. And that's not arbitrary. It has nothing to do with like a relative morality. There aren't other ways of going about it. Given that you're going to exist across time, you have to bind your actions in the present by that knowledge. I suppose you could eliminate the necessity of that by sacrificing your consciousness, right? Your self-consciousness, your apprehension of your vulnerability across time. And by the way, that's exactly what you do if you drink alcohol, right? Because alcohol does exactly that. It delimits the effect of the future on your present behavior. And that can be Dionysian level of fun. But there's tomorrow. And that's the problem. And it's not just tomorrow. It's tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And then it's all the other people around you too. And that's the same problem. And so you're constrained or regulated in your action by the necessity of sacrificing the present, not completely, but sacrificing the present for the future. And that's the discovery of work. You know, it's what separates, one of the things that separates human beings from animals is that we have to do that. And it's better to do that, even though it's not easy. And even though maybe you have to do things you hate. Well, then let's delve into that a bit. You have to toil. You know, when God kicks Adam and Eve out of paradise for the sin of pride, essentially, he tells Adam, you're going to have to toil in the dirt, and it'll feed you, but you'll generate thorns, and you'll sacrifice and sweat and struggle. And that's definitely life. And so you might say, well, that's hateful. And look, subsistence level farming, let's say, how people lived for generations, just hand to mouth, barely scraping by. That can be pretty damn brutal. But it does still beg the question, even when you're struggling, are there ways that you can struggle that make things maybe not even merely bearable, although that would be a start, but maybe acceptable, and then maybe beyond that, joyful, if you could manage it?
Yo, Jordan speaks crazy to me. Like, he has so many things. I have to rewatch him to catch half the stuff that he says. Because honestly, yeah, I think he's good at getting his point across. But like he said, we are sent here to toil, to sacrifice. And life is all about what you're willing to sacrifice. What are you willing to give up now for your future? And are you willing to sacrifice working in this field so that you can bear fruit? That's the question you got to ask yourself. I feel like today's show is all encompassing on how I feel about how I feel this year is going, and that is hard work. Working harder, sacrificing more, putting in more effort to get the things that I want. So we're going to work hard on that. We're going to sacrifice. We for sure. All that stuff. That's what we want. I know I have dreams. I have aspirations. I want to be I want to have a net worth of $1 million by 30, which means I need to sacrifice now. I need to toil. I need to work in the field in order to achieve my dreams. That just is what it is. And we all have to, that's the curse we all have to face. What are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want? Come on, Jordan, go on and end us out.
Those of you who've worked in working class jobs, brutal, difficult working class jobs, you know that if you get the camaraderie right, that's a big plus, And then the fact that you're toiling and suffering together can produce a kind of transcendence. It's that part of the reason the relationships can become so deep, this often happens with military personnel, is because the challenge is so great, and the shared identity of confronting that challenge together can produce a social revelation that is compensation for the catastrophe. And so even if things are difficult, the question still remains, what could you do better to make this better? And then we might say too, do not do what you hate. Well, you have to discipline yourself. And that means you have to put yourself in harness, and you might strive against that, like a horse that's being broken, and you might say, well, what a catastrophe to break a horse, or to train a dog to pull a sledge, but we have to be disciplined, and to do that you have to subject yourself to strictures and constraints, and you have to play by the rules. And I suppose, as Nietzsche pointed out, you waste a lot of yourself doing that, by adopting some regulated and disciplined structure. Maybe that's your job, or one relationship instead of many. It's a narrowing and a limiting, but at the same time, it's a fostering of your ability to concentrate with single-minded intensity and purpose on an actual goal instead of a hypothetical plethora of goals. And there's no difference between that and being mature. And being mature is better than being a child, even though we seem to have forgotten that in our culture. Now, there's a step beyond that even, where the injunction is to leave childhood and to become mature, and then to rediscover what you lost in childhood. And maybe that's something like the spirit of play and that open-eyed amazement that children naturally bring to the world. And if you can incorporate that back into your psyche once you've become mature and disciplined, well, then you get to have your cake and eat it too. And that's something that's in principle worth striving for. And I say you get a glimpse of that, when at the end of a difficult day, maybe you go to the local country music bar and there's a hot band playing and you get a chance to dance with someone you love and you get to play and you think, and all the notes are stacked on top of each other perfectly, reflecting the intrinsic harmony of the world itself, and you align yourself with that. You do that with someone you love and you get that spirit of play infusing you, because in some sense you were disciplined enough to make the money that allowed you to afford to go to the damn bar, And so that's not such a bad deal, and it's at least a glimpse of the way things could be if you really got your act together, so that you were disciplined and aiming true and playful all at the same time. Even when dire circumstances confront you, and that's the sign of a real master, and that's a receding ideal. I mean, who could claim to have managed that? But I can't see that you have anything better to do.
Jordan Peterson, y'all, with the beauty of sacrifice. I think sacrifice is a must. I think sacrifice is a great thing. I'm glad that we get to sacrifice because it makes the things that we have a lot more better. I feel like, like those rich kids who got it all already and they're still miserable as all get out because they don't sacrifice for anything. They don't find joy in it. It's like, all right, I just have everything. Everything just comes to me. They have no struggle at all. Sacrifice allows you to enjoy the beauty of life. It does. It does. That's why we all need to sacrifice for our future. When you sacrifice by planting those seeds in the ground, planting seeds in the ground is work. Then you have to continue to water and take care of those seeds as they grow before they blossom, and then it's just by the sacrifice you put in to get that end result. I feel like it's always worth it. It's always worth the sacrifice. I know people, they want to have it easy. You want to have it easy, you want to complain. Even with politics, like you want somebody who's going to give it to you. You want somebody who's going to give you that handout. You don't want the person who you have to work for it. It's like that's why you're in the state that you're in now. You're just always giving stuff. As a person who's worked for everything that I have, worked hard for it, I appreciate the struggles that I went through. I appreciate the struggle of going through school. Now, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have told you that. I'm tired of this. But the sacrifice, keeping my head down, grinding it out, and getting through school, sacrifice well worth it. So I think we all just need to sacrifice more, work harder, continue down that line, and our lives are there. If you keep working, it's going to get better. But at the same time, you need to sacrifice to get to where you need to go. And for some of y'all, it looks different. It looks different. If you're with me, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment, y'all.